How's it going, everyone? I hope you had a happy holiday, happy championship week for probably 80% of the leagues out there. I myself did pretty well this season. For those of you that play all the way out to week number 18, we are going to do some starts and sits for you. So let's kick it off with the quarterback position. I have a start and CJ Stroud, Houston Texans versus the Colts. I expect them to continue putting up some big numbers. Next, Jared Goff versus the Vikings. I think Jared Goff and them are going to come out and prove that they are one of the best teams in the league, especially after that terrible referee caused loss last week to Dallas. And their coach said they're going to play all their starters. Finally, Kyler Murray. I think they're going to continue trying to build for next season. They have the Seahawks, so I expect him to continue putting up some pretty good fancy numbers at the quarterback position. Now on to our sits. Any of the Giants quarterbacks, whoever it may be this week, against the Eagles, who are definitely going to be playing to try to win the division. So any of the Giants quarterbacks, that is a sit. Same thing with the Washington Commanders. Who knows who it's going to be, but you definitely want to sit them, especially against a tough Dallas defense, and they also will be playing for their division. And finally, the Rams or the 49ers. Neither one of them have much to really play for. The Rams are a wild card. The 49ers have the number one seed, so they're going to be sitting a lot of their players. So please sit those quarterbacks. That's what I got for you at the quarterback position.
These are my starts and sits at running back for Week 18. Start Elijah Mitchell. CMC has been announced out, and even though he gets a tough matchup versus the Rams, he's going to get the majority of the volume in the 49ers running game, which is the most valuable role in all of fantasy football. Start Rachaad White. Don't overthink it. I know he had a bad game last week, but he gets a great matchup versus the Panthers in a must-win game for Tampa Bay. I expect him to bounce back big against a weak Panthers run defense. Start James Conner. He's been on fire over the last month with 3 top 5 finishes at the running back position over the last 4 weeks. He has a dream matchup versus the Seahawks, who are giving up over 180 rushing yards per game in the last 3 games. Sit Ty Chandler versus Detroit. Chandler has been solid, but he gets a tough matchup versus Detroit, who just shut down Tony Pollard last week. Detroit has been the number 1 run defense over the last 3 games. Sit Javonte Williams. He hasn't seen over 50% snap share in 3 weeks, and McLaughlin should continue to eat into his touches. Williams hasn't averaged over 3 yards per carry in any game over the last 3 weeks, and I would keep him cemented on the bench. Sit Aaron Jones. He's been on fire, but he gets a tough matchup versus Chicago, who has looked very good recently, and they're the number 1 team against the rush this season in the NFL.
I see your fantasy playoffs going to week 18, so here's your wide receiver start sits. We are starting Rashee Rice. The rookie has been on an absolute tear these last 5 weeks, hauling in 38 receptions for 391 yards. Against the terrible Chargers pass defense, he's a low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2. And we're starting DK Metcalf. He's looking to finish the season on a high note, as Seattle is still battling for a playoff spot. As long as he can keep his cool, he should have a good day against the Arizona defense. Chris Olave is getting the start nod. Last time out against the Falcons, he caught 7 passes for 114 yards. Last week, I said start T. Higgins, and that was a complete bust. This week, we're sitting T. Higgins because not only does he have a matchup against the Browns defense, but he made me look bad. And we're sitting Deontay Johnson. After a good performance against the Seahawks, you may be leaning towards starting him, but proceed with caution because the Baltimore defense is scary good.
At the tight end position, I'd be starting Evan Ingram this week. Ever since Christian Kirk got hurt, you've seen him emerge as a top 2 receiving option for Trevor Lawrence, and I think that they'll rely on him heavily this week against the Titans. I would be sitting Dalton Schultz against Indianapolis this week. He hasn't been getting a ton of targets the last month, and even when he hasn't produced or been getting into the end zone. I'd be sitting Dalton Schultz in week 18. Those are your start sits. Good luck to whoever's still playing and has a championship on the line. Make smart decisions and get the W.
My 2024 New Year's resolution is to play more daily fantasy. The last 2 NFL and NBA seasons were tough since the birth of my son, but now that he's getting older and more independent, I should have more time to research, and also hopefully watch more, which I guess you can consider research. I'm going to get my feet wet again here in the later half of the NBA season, and hopefully I can get back to doing daily, almost daily.
Now, my New Year's resolution for you guys is going to be stop failing short of championships when I'm in the playoffs. What I mean by that is I tend to play very safe. I go with guys that have a high floor. 2 weeks ago, Gabe Davis, I went back and forth, probably 3 or 4 times when all the things were telling me to start him, match up the way he had been when he'd had 2 bad games, and I just couldn't pull the trigger, and that was the difference between me being in a championship and one of my leagues. And I do that quite a bit. When I draft, I tend to draft people with really high floors, which can kind of make it where they don't have the highest ceilings. So for me next year, it's going to be going out there and getting a little bit on the limb and drafting people maybe with higher ceilings. Out of 19 teams, I did make the playoffs in 13 and 14 leagues. I won 4 championships, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds, so overall pretty well.
My New Year's resolution is to play more poker. It's something that I really love to do, and I want to grind again this year with the intention of moving up in stakes. I know it's going to take a lot of work and dedication, and I'll definitely have to put in the hours that are required to do so. I'm going to put in more hours studying as well off the tables. I want to reach the highest heights in the game, and in order to do that, you have to put in the work, and this year is going to be about doing just that.
My 2024 sporting resolution is to go to more live sports games. I do want to go to an NHL game. I've never been to one before, and I think that'd be awesome. And maybe a few Cubs games and a Bears or Rams game, and the Bulls would be cool. So I do want to dabble and go to a couple games this year.
Feels like Charizard just took a shit in my mouth.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming at you with 3 quick hot takes from 3 different sports in a cold garage. The Chicago Bulls will make the playoffs in the East. They currently sit 10th in the last spot for the play-in tournament, but be it via record or the play-in tournament, they will make the playoffs. Manchester City will win back-to-back trebles. Last year they won the Champions League, Premier League, and FA Cup. I expect them to do it again. A European treble has only been completed 10 times in the history of the sport. No club has ever gone back-to-back. However, Samuel Eto'o went back-to-back as a player with Barcelona and Inter Milan. And last, the Cleveland Browns will win the AFC Championship. The Ravens look so dominant, but the rest of the AFC is a toss-up. Joe Flacco and the dominant Browns defense advance to Super Bowl 58.
It is that time for a few hot takes. First up, we got those cheating Dallas Cowboys. I feel like Jerry's always out there paying the refs, especially when they're paying the lines. But really, the Cowboys, they're not going to make any noise this year in the playoffs. I actually hope they get to play the Lions so the Lions can show them that this win this past week was a fraudulent win. Next, the Lakers. Same kind of thing. They won that in-season tournament, but overall for the season, they're going to be lucky to make the playoffs. Definitely not going to make it past the second round unless they give up that valuable protected pick that they can trade in 2027, 2029, I believe. I get it. They don't want to do it because LeBron will be gone. There's a chance that that's definitely a top 5 pick. But if they're trying to win one more championship with LeBron and AD, they're going to have to give up those valuable picks. And I don't think the Lakers will do it. And truthfully, it might be smart business sense on their end trying to protect the franchise. And finally, the Red Sox. I'm a Yankees fan, so I love hating on them. I don't know what's going on with the Red Sox. You guys aren't signing in the big bad boys anymore like you did when you had Manny and you were just out there really competing for championships. I think, you kind of got into this process where you thought the Red Sox would just keep rolling, but your farm system hasn't churned out anything. So, it's one of those things where if they're going to stay in the bottom of the East, as a Yankee fan, I don't hate it, but life is always better for baseball when the Yankees and Red Sox are competing for championships. So those are my hot takes.
These are my hot takes of the week. The Dolphins are still a threat to win the Super Bowl. They have a great offense, defense, and coaching. They could definitely get hot and still compete and win the championship. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's definitely a possibility. If CMC is healthy in the playoffs, I think the 49ers are still the team to beat in the NFL, and I think they should be favored to win the Super Bowl. Everybody's on the Ravens bandwagon right now, but I definitely wouldn't write the 49ers off yet.
My hot take of the week is that the Kansas City Chiefs are still the best team in football, despite the records and all the drama. Seems like everything's going wrong for them, but they're still going to finish as one of the top seeds in the AFC, have a couple of home games, and have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Go Chiefs.
This is a poker hand I played at 1-2 stakes at Shuffle 512 in Austin, Texas. I had Ace-Jack offsuit in the cutoff, and the under-the-gun +1 player limped in, and a loose guy in the MP opened to $10. The next to act calls, and I 3-bet to $45 in the cutoff, and only the under-the-gun +1 limper called. So already this is an interesting setup because I did not expect the limper to call, but I'm happy he did because normally we're going to be dominating a lot of his range here. So the pot's 115 going to the flop, which comes Jack 7-8 Rainbow, which is an awesome flop for us because we're going to be dominating his other jacks that he could have here, and he's going to have to be forced to defend with a lot of pairs as well. I choose to go big and bet $80 here, as this board's pretty dynamic and the nuts are likely to change by the river. The villain calls and we're off to the turn with $275 in the pot. The turn comes the 9 of diamonds, which brings in a one-liner to a straight and a diamond draw. It's not a great card for us, so when he checks, I check back. And the river comes the 7 of diamonds, which pairs the board and brings in the flush. Now the villain bets 105, and this bet doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He shouldn't have too many flushes because he limped in pre-flop from under the gun +1, and usually that range is going to be a lot of offsuit hands and small pairs. It also doesn't make a lot of sense that he would have a boat here because I don't think he would limp with 7s, 8s, 9s, or jacks. He could have jack 7, but he probably would have raised that on the flop. I don't think this is the type of player that would slow play with 2 pair. I also don't think he would just go for a value bet now with a 10. So I get curious, I make the call, and we catch him bluffing with jack 6 offsuit. So it's kind of interesting he turned top pair into a bluff on this board, but I don't mind the play from him. I'm just glad we made the call this time.
Time for some things that we got right and wrong. First up, me, Tony, to start Jordan Love. He had a great game, and I might have to take back a little bit of the hate that I gave Jordan. Next, we have Jacob telling you to sit Derrick Henry. Hopefully you did, or else he might have cost you a championship. Same thing with Jacob telling you to sit Tony Pollard. Those two running backs, they're looking like they're a little overrated, especially going into next season, so keep that in mind. Then we have Jordan telling you to start CeeDee Lamb. That should have been a no-brainer, but hopefully you did because he would have been a league winner. And finally, listen to me when I told you start the Houston Texans defense that gave you 21 points. A couple of things we got wrong. Telling you to sit Dalton Kincaid. He had a pretty good game, giving you 10+ points. Then Jacob telling you to start Jahmyr Gibbs. He came up a little short in big time game. And finally, the Las Vegas Raiders defense turned into a pumpkin.
Because I'm a stud. I'm ballsy. I don't take no from anyone. I smoke my stogie anywhere I want. I don't have to find a hideout place like you.
This is the Degenerate Gambling Life's Added Minutes with me, your boy, Jordan Tennis. With the end of 2023, Cristiano Ronaldo ends the year as the world's top goal scorer, netting 54 goals in 59 matches for Al Nassr and Portugal. Close on his heels were Bayern Munich's Harry Kane and PSG's Kylian Mbappe, each with 52 goals. Also reaching the 50-goal mark was Manchester City's Erling Haaland. The Wrexham Watch is back, and sorry we haven't had a Wrexham Watch in a while, but we're back with some heat. Third place Wrexham took on fourth place Borough on New Year's Day and quickly found themselves behind in the first minute as Borough's Kean Spence tapped in a great cross from Elliot Newby. Maybe the Wrexham players partied a little too much on New Year's Eve, but if they didn't, what was to come was surely reason for celebration. Wrexham banged in 3 goals in 4 minutes to close out the first half thanks to a wonderful free kick from Paul Mullen sandwiched between 2 goals from Stephen Fletcher. With the Welsh club up 3-1 in the second half, the game was put out of reach when Anthony Ford whipped in a cross and Stephen Fletcher completed his hat-trick with a beautiful header. Up next for Wrexham is the third round of the FA Cup on January 7th against League One side Shrewsbury Town. We'll wrap up today with a quick highlight of each of Europe's top 5 title races. The Bundesliga in Germany sees Bayer Leverkusen 5 points clear Bayern Munich, who do have a game in hand. Paris Saint-Germain finally climbed back to the summit of French Ligue 1 and sit 5 points above second place Nice, with AS Monaco hovering just below them. Inter Milan is holding off Juventus in the Italian Serie A, just 2 points separating those two challengers. Spain's La Liga has 2 teams leading the way in Real Madrid and Girona, who are tied on 45 points. Atletico Madrid and Barcelona are just off the pace, both on 38 points. And with the closest title race in the world, English Premier League has a small stable of teams all in the mix. Liverpool, who are currently playing at the time of this recording, are tied with Aston Villa on 42 points. The surging Manchester City team and a slipping Arsenal team sit just 2 points behind at 40, with Tottenham Hotspur rounding out the top 5 with 39 points. That will do it for this edition of the Added Minutes. We hope that your 2024 will be better than your 2023, and we'll see you next week.
Here we go with the Week 18 NFL defenses to stream. First up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Chargers. I think the Chiefs will continue trying to fine-tune as they go into the playoffs. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers have something to play for, where the Ravens will be sitting all their starters if they are smart. Next, the New England Patriots versus the New York Jets. What might be Big Bill's final game, he definitely probably wants to go out with a big W on his record, so look to start their defense. And finally, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Carolina Panthers. The Buccaneers will be playing for their playoff lives, so I expect them to come through big. Now, let's pivot on to fantasy basketball. The first player we have is T. Prince on the LA Lakers. He is available in 75% of leagues. He's been player 44 for the last month. He gives you position flexibility at the small forward and power forward position. He's been putting up 12 points, 4 3-pointers made, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. Next, we're going to talk about a player we have once before, but he's heating up again. Lindsay Dort, again butchered his name probably, of the Oklahoma City Thunder. He gives you great position flexibility in the fact that he gives you shooting guard and small forward, so he can play in the guard and the forward positions. He's available in over 67% of the leagues. He's player number 90 on the season, player 45 for the last 2 weeks. He gives you 13 points, 3 3-pointers made, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block a game. Those are some great numbers. And now finally, your reminder that we will be in Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. February 8th through the 12th, we'll be having a meetup game at the Mandalay Bay Casino Thursday, February 8th at 6 p.m. Come say hi to us. We definitely will have some merch. We'll be playing poker the whole weekend, playing some other games. We can talk about fantasy baseball or other things that you like, so just come up and say hi. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, and hit that subscribe button.